You think cannibalism is a human invention? Think again. Deep in caves across Europe, archaeologists uncover bone fragments that tell a different story. Cut marks on thigh bones, skulls cracked open from the inside, marrow extraction patterns that match butchered deer. But these aren't human remains. They're Neanderthal. For 40,000 years, our closest evolutionary cousins practiced something we barely understand. Why did they consume their own? What drove entire communities to break the ultimate taboo? The bones don't lie. We're talking about Homo neanderthalensis. They dominated Europe and Western Asia from 250,000 to 40,000 years ago. Stockier than us, stronger, bigger brains in some cases. They buried their dead with flowers, made jewelry, controlled fire, and sometimes they ate each other. The evidence sits in museums across Europe. Moulagersi Cave in France, El Cedron in Spain, Goyet Cave in Belgium. Each site tells the same story with different details. Cut marks, percussion damage, systematic dismemberment. The kind of processing you see when someone knows exactly what they're doing. If you value documented prehistoric history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. The script is researched and factual, using sources from Nature Journal and the Journal of Human Evolution. Now back to the story. Moulagersi Cave sits in the Ardèche Valley in southern France. 1999, Alban de Fleur leads a team down into layers dating to 100,000 years ago. They expect animal bones. Stone tools, maybe? Instead, they find the systematically processed remains of 6 Neanderthals. 2 adults, 4 children. Every bone shows the same pattern. Cut marks where muscles attach, percussion damage where someone struck to extract marrow. Skull fragments scattered like broken pottery. The processing is methodical, professional. Whoever did this knew anatomy. They stripped flesh from bones the same way they processed red deer found in the same layer. No difference in technique, no hesitation marks, no ritual care. Just efficient butchery. The children's bones show the most damage, easier to process, a higher marrow yield. The femurs are cracked lengthwise to access every drop of fat. De Fleur's team catalogs every mark. 143 cut marks on 78 bone fragments. The angles match stone tool experiments. The locations target meat-rich areas, biceps attachment points, thigh muscle origins, calf insertions. Someone sat in this cave 100,000 years ago and reduced 6 people to food. The bones were then mixed with deer and horse remains, tossed aside like kitchen waste. But Moulagersi isn't alone. El Cedron Cave in northern Spain yields an even more complete picture. 2006, a team led by Antonio Rosas descends into chambers that haven't seen daylight for 49,000 years. They find the remains of 12 Neanderthals. 3 adult males, 3 adult females, 3 adolescents, 3 children, all processed the same way, all consumed, cold, systematic, final. The El Cedron bones tell a more detailed story. These weren't random killings. The group was related. DNA analysis reveals family connections. A father and daughter among the victims. Brothers, cousins. Someone killed and ate their own relatives. The processing happened quickly. No time for decay. The bodies were fresh when the cutting began. Whoever did this had access to the cave, knew the victims, trusted them enough to get close. The cut marks at El Cedron show something else. Precision. The person wielding the tools knew exactly where to cut. They separated joints cleanly, removed muscle groups intact. Cracked skulls to access brains with minimal damage to surrounding bone. This wasn't desperation eating. This was practice technique. Someone had done this before. Rosas finds tool marks on finger bones, tiny cuts where someone stripped away the last bits of flesh. Even the cartilage was valuable, nothing wasted. The skull fragments show impact points where someone struck to open the cranium, multiple blows, careful angles. They wanted the brain tissue intact, soft, nutritious, easy to digest. The timeline matters. 49,000 years ago puts El Cedron right at the end of Neanderthal occupation in this region. Climate data shows increasing cold, harsh winters, reduced plant resources, large herbivores moving south. Maybe this was survival cannibalism. Last resort eating when everything else ran out, but the processing technique suggests otherwise. This level of skill takes practice. Goyet Cave in Belgium adds another layer. 96 Neanderthal bone fragments dating to 45,000 years ago. Same processing patterns. Same systematic dismemberment, but Goyet shows something new. The bones were used after consumption. Femur fragments shaped into tools, skull pieces worn smooth from handling, ribs modified into scrapers. They ate the people, then used their bones for months afterward. The Goyet remains show a different processing pattern, less efficient, more wasteful, chunks of meat left on bones, marrow incompletely extracted, like someone learning the technique or doing it under stress. The tool modifications came later, long after consumption. Someone lived in this cave for months, making implements from human remains, daily reminders of what they'd done. But why? Nutritional analysis of Neanderthal bones reveals surprising results. A single adult human provides approximately 125,000 calories, enough to feed 10 people for 6 days. The brain alone contains 2,000 calories of fat and protein, concentrated nutrition in a portable package. For communities facing starvation, human flesh represented a significant caloric investment, especially children. Higher fat content, easier to digest. Climate records from 40 to 60,000 years ago showed dramatic temperature swings, the last ice age building momentum, forests retreating, megafauna populations crashing, reindeer herds moving hundreds of kilometers south each winter. Neanderthal communities trapped in northern refugia with dwindling resources. When a group member died naturally, the choice became clear: bury scarce calories or consume them. Archaeological evidence supports this survival model. Sites with cannibalism show reduced artifact diversity. Fewer decorative objects, less evidence of long-term occupation, signs of communities under stress, contrasted with contemporary sites without cannibalism, rich tool assemblages, evidence of trade networks, stable occupation layers. The pattern suggests cannibalism emerged when normal systems broke down. But some sites challenge the survival hypothesis. Krapina Cave in Croatia. 24 Neanderthal individuals dating to 130,000 years ago. Systematic processing, complete dismemberment, but no evidence of resource stress. Contemporary layers show abundant animal remains, successful hunting, stable occupation. Yet someone still chose to consume human flesh. The processing is even more thorough than survival sites. Every bone cracked, every joint separated. Maximum extraction. The Krapina remains show something unique. Evidence of cooking, burned bone fragments with specific heating patterns. Someone roasted human flesh over controlled fires. Not desperate consumption of raw meat, prepared meals. Deliberate choices about cuts and cooking methods. The burned areas match patterns seen on contemporary animal bones. Same preparation techniques, same culinary approach, social cannibalism, ritualized consumption, community bonding through shared transgression. Anthropological parallels exist in historical societies. The four people of Papua New Guinea consumed deceased relatives as part of mortuary practices. The Aztecs integrated human sacrifice and consumption into religious ceremonies. Maybe Neanderthals developed similar cultural practices. Social glue through shared participation in taboo breaking. If you value documented prehistoric history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. Now back to the evidence. The bone chemistry tells another story. Isotope analysis of Neanderthal remains. From cannibalism sites shows unusual patterns. Elevated nitrogen levels indicating high protein diets, but also signatures consistent with consuming members of your own species. Cannibals show isotopic signatures that match their victims. Chemical evidence of human flesh and human bone. The signature persists for months after consumption. Permanent markers of dietary choices. Sites without cannibalism show different patterns. Normal isotope ranges. Diets dominated by large herbivores. Seasonal variation consistent with hunting migrations. The chemical signatures, separate populations. Groups that practiced cannibalism versus groups that didn't. Geographic clustering suggests cultural transmission. Communities learning the practice from neighbors. Spreading the technique across regions. DNA analysis adds complexity. Neanderthal populations at cannibalism sites show reduced genetic diversity. Signs of inbreeding. Small population sizes. Maybe cannibalism was a population control mechanism. Eliminating surplus individuals during resource crunches. Maintaining group size within sustainable limits. The victims at El Cedron include more females than males, potentially targeting reproductive individuals to limit population growth. But the pattern isn't consistent. Some cannibalism sites show normal genetic diversity, healthy population signatures, no evidence of demographic stress. The practice seems to emerge independently in different communities under different conditions. Environmental pressure in some cases, cultural adoption in others. Population control occasionally. No single explanation fits all sites. Modern experimental archaeology provides processing baselines. Teams working with donated human cadavers replicate the bone modifications seen at Neanderthal sites. Stone tool experiments produce identical cut mark patterns. Percussion damage matches systematic marrow extraction. The angles and locations confirm deliberate processing by individuals with anatomical knowledge, not random violence, planned consumption. The experiments revealed timing constraints. Complete processing of an adult human requires 6 to 8 hours with stone tools. multiple individuals working together, coordinated effort, not something done in secret or haste, community participation, shared labor, everyone involved in the reduction process. The scale suggests social acceptance, maybe even expectation. Processing efficiency varies by site. Muligersi shows maximum extraction. Every usable calorie recovered. El Cedron demonstrates similar thoroughness, but with more tool marks. Multiple attempts at difficult joints. Learning curves. Goyet reveals incomplete processing. Bones discarded with meat still attached. Different skill levels. Different motivations. The same basic practice adapted to local circumstances. Combe Grenal in France adds another dimension. 60,000 years ago, layer 55 contains processed. Neanderthal remains mixed with hundreds of animal bones, but the human bones show different treatment. Skulls placed in specific positions, long bones arranged in parallel lines. Someone consumed the flesh but honored the remains. Ritual consumption rather than desperate survival. The animal bones are scattered randomly, discarded after eating. The human bones are curated, kept, organized. Francois Bordes excavated Combe Grenal in the 1960s. His team found stone circles surrounding the organized human remains, intentional placement, ceremonial arrangement. The processed bones were cleaned after consumption, scrapped free of tissue, polished smooth from handling. Someone spent hours preparing these remains for display. Community investment in post-consumption ritual, death and eating and memory intertwined. The stone tools at Combe Grenal tell their own story. Specialized scrapers designed for flesh removal, backed knives perfect for joint separation, hammerstones with specific wear patterns from bone breaking, a toolkit optimized for human processing, not general butchery equipment adapted for emergency use, purpose-built implements for routine cannibalism, investment in the practice, long-term planning. Tool wear analysis reveals frequency of use. The specialized scrapers show extensive edge damage, months or years of regular employment. The backed knives display specific use wear patterns, repeated cutting through joint cartilage, systematic separation of limb segments. Someone used these tools dozens of times, maybe hundreds. Professional level experience in human disarticulation. Spy Cave in Belgium provides temporal depth, multiple occupation layers spanning 30,000 years, from 120,000 to 90,000 years ago. Each layer contains processed human remains. Same techniques, same tool types, same post-processing organization. Cannibalism as cultural tradition, passed between generations, refined over millennia. A practice as fundamental as tool making or fire control. The Spy Cave sequence shows technological evolution. Early layers contain simple scrapers and choppers. Later levels reveal specialized processing tools, refinement over time, improved efficiency, better extraction techniques, communities investing in cannibalism technology, developing expertise, creating traditions around human consumption, the practice becoming more sophisticated rather than disappearing. Bone chemistry from Spy Cave reveals dietary integration. Human flesh comprised significant portions of total protein intake, not emergency food. Regular dietary component. The isotope signatures show seasonal variation. Higher human consumption during winter months, lower during summer abundance, strategic supplementation rather than desperate survival, planning human resources like other food sources. Teshiktash Cave in Uzbekistan extends the geographic range. 70,000 years ago, a single Neanderthal child processed with identical techniques, cut marks in identical locations, percussion damage following European patterns. The practice spread across entire continents. From Atlantic coasts to Central Asia, shared knowledge crossing vast distances, cultural transmission on unprecedented scales. The Teshiktash child shows careful processing, small bones completely stripped, skull opened with precision, brain tissue extracted intact. No wastage despite the limited meat yield. Someone took time with this small body, applied full adult processing techniques to minimal returns, ritual importance outweighing nutritional value, symbolic consumption rather than caloric necessity. Dental analysis from cannibalism sites reveals processing methods, tooth wear patterns consistent with bone gnawing, specific damage from marrow extraction, enamel chips from striking bones against stones. Neanderthals didn't just process human flesh with tools. They used their teeth as instruments, gnawed bones clean, extracted every calorie, consumed everything edible including cartilage and small bone fragments. The dental evidence shows age-related patterns. Adult teeth display extensive bone-gnawing wear. Juvenile teeth show minimal damage. Children weren't participating in consumption, or weren't consuming the hardest tissues. Adults monopolized the most nutritious elements, brain tissue, marrow, organ meat. Kids got softer portions, or none at all. Hierarchical access to human resources. Microscopic analysis of cut marks reveals tool materials. Flint implements leave specific edge signatures. Quartz tools create different patterns. Obsidian produces the cleanest cuts. Neanderthals selected optimal materials for human processing. Traveled hundreds of kilometers to obtain superior cutting stones. Invested significant effort in cannibalism tool quality. Prioritized efficiency in human consumption technology. Regional variations emerge in processing patterns. Iberian sites show preference for skull opening. French caves emphasize long bone breaking. German locations focus on joint separation, local traditions within shared practice, cultural preferences in consumption techniques, communities developing signature approaches to cannibalism, maintaining identity through specific processing methods. The variations suggest teaching traditions, master-apprentice relationships in cannibalism technique, older individuals passing specialized knowledge to younger members, technical skills requiring years to develop, precision in bone breaking, efficiency in flesh removal, knowledge of optimal cutting angles, expertise that couldn't emerge from occasional desperate consumption, professional level instruction in human processing. Hearth analysis from cannibalism sites reveals cooking preferences. Human bones show different burning patterns than animal remains. Lower temperatures, shorter duration, preference for roasting over boiling, specific preparation methods for human flesh, culinary traditions adapted to cannibalism, technical knowledge about optimal cooking techniques for human meat, taste preferences influencing thermal processing. The cooking evidence suggests social meals, large hearths capable of feeding entire communities, coordinated preparation of multiple individuals simultaneously, shared consumption rather than individual feeding, cannibalism as community bonding activity, group participation in preparation and eating, social reinforcement through collective transgression, strengthening group identity through shared taboo violation. Paleogenetic analysis reveals inbreeding signatures at cannibalism sites, reduced genetic diversity, limited mate exchange between groups, small effective population sizes, communities turning inward, consuming outsiders who might otherwise become marriage partners, cannibalism limiting genetic flow, creating isolated populations vulnerable to demographic collapse, the practice potentially accelerating its own demise. But some sites show opposite patterns. High genetic diversity despite cannibalism evidence, active mate exchange with distant groups, large effective population sizes, healthy demographic profiles, cannibalism coexisting with normal social networks, the practice not necessarily isolating communities, maybe even facilitating contact through ritual sharing, inviting neighboring groups to participate in consumption ceremonies. Weapon trauma analysis complicates the picture. Some cannibalism victims showed perimortem violence, skull fractures from blunt force impacts, penetrating wounds from spear points, evidence of conflict before consumption. Maybe these weren't community members, outsiders killed in warfare, then processed for food. Enemies consumed as final domination, victory celebration through cannibalism of defeated opponents. Other victims show no violence markers, natural death followed by systematic processing, community members who died from disease or old age, bodies processed to prevent waste. Honoring the deceased through consumption, keeping them within the group even after death. Literal incorporation of community members, death not ending belonging, but transforming it, but the practice ended. Cannibalism disappears from the Neanderthal archaeological record around 40,000 years ago, right when modern humans begin expanding across Europe. Competition for resources intensifies. Neanderthal populations fragment into smaller groups. Isolated communities struggling with declining numbers. Maybe cannibalism became counterproductive, eating your own group when you can't afford to lose anyone. The last evidence comes from Gibraltar, Gorham's Cave, 28,000 years ago, one of the final Neanderthal refugia. Scattered human bone fragments with cut marks, but incomplete processing. Bones discarded with significant flesh remaining, like someone started the job but couldn't finish, or didn't know how. The final generation losing the knowledge. Cultural transmission breaking down as communities disappeared. Recent discoveries complicate the timeline. Vintage a cave in Croatia, 42,000 years ago. Neanderthal bones with fresh cut marks, but also modern human DNA in the same layers. Contact between species, competition. Maybe the cannibalism represents conflict rather than cultural practice. Modern humans eliminating competition, or Neanderthals consuming modern human remains. The bone fragments are too small for species identification, but the timing is significant. The practice might have contributed to Neanderthal extinction. Prion diseases emerge from consuming neural tissue. Kuru among the forepeople. Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease in modern populations. Fatal neurodegenerative conditions transmitted through cannibalism. If Neanderthal populations practiced routine consumption of brain tissue, they may have introduced devastating epidemics: cognitive decline, motor dysfunction, population collapse, death through dietary choice. Archaeological evidence supports the disease hypothesis. Late Neanderthal sites show unusual bone pathologies, abnormal growth patterns, neural degeneration markers, skeletal indicators of systemic disease, populations struggling with more than just environmental pressure, internal biological collapse. Cannibalism creating the conditions for its own elimination. Pathological analysis from Shanidar Cave in Iraq reveals neurological abnormalities, asymmetric skull development, abnormal bone growth patterns, signs consistent with prion disease progression. These individuals lived with degenerative conditions for years before death, communities supporting members with severe disabilities, then processing their bodies after natural death. Disease and cannibalism intertwined in final populations. The Shanidar remains date to 50,000 years ago, late in Neanderthal history, right when populations begin fragmenting, environmental pressure mounting, resources becoming scarce. Maybe cannibalism emerged as survival strategy, but evolved into disease vector. Communities consuming infected neural tissue, spreading fatal conditions through dietary choices, accelerating their own demographic collapse. Comparative analysis with modern hunter-gatherer societies reveals parallels. The Fore people of Papua New Guinea practiced mortuary cannibalism until the 1950s, consuming deceased relatives as part of funeral rites, honoring the dead through incorporation, but also spreading Kuru disease, fatal neurodegenerative condition transmitted through infected brain tissue, epidemics devastating entire communities, cultural practice becoming biological catastrophe. Kuru symptoms match pathological markers from late Neanderthal sites: motor dysfunction, cognitive decline, abnormal bone development, progressive neurological deterioration. Maybe Neanderthal cannibalism followed similar patterns: ritual consumption, spreading fatal conditions, communities unknowingly poisoning themselves through ceremonial meals, cultural traditions becoming extinction mechanisms. But not all researchers accept the cannibalism interpretation. Some argue the bone modifications represent secondary burial practices, defleshing deceased individuals before interment, mortuary procedures rather than consumption. The cut marks match those seen in historical societies that practiced excarnation, removing flesh to accelerate decomposition, preparing bones for final burial, cultural respect rather than dietary choice. The debate continues in academic journals. Processing patterns that suggest consumption versus ritual preparation, bone chemistry indicating ingestion versus external handling, archaeological contexts supporting survival cannibalism versus mortuary practices. Each interpretation fits portions of the evidence. None explains everything. The bones preserve actions but not motivations, technique without intention. What we know for certain is that Neanderthals systematically processed human remains at multiple sites across Europe. They possessed the anatomical knowledge to efficiently extract nutrition from human bodies. They passed this knowledge between generations and across communities. They practiced these techniques for tens of thousands of years before disappearing entirely. Whether driven by hunger, ritual, or population pressure, they chose to cross the ultimate boundary. They consumed their own kind. 2 years ago, excavations at a new site in France revealed something unprecedented: Les Pradelles Cave, 70,000 years ago. A mass burial containing 43 Neanderthal individuals, all showing systematic processing, all consumed, but arranged in careful patterns after consumption, bones sorted by type, skulls aligned facing east, femurs grouped by size. Someone ate these people, then organized their remains with ritual care, the largest cannibalism site ever discovered, and the most ritualized. Consumption and reverence in the same archaeological moment. The bones remember what we've forgotten.